Marvel movies are destined to succeed. Well, if you made this statement during the reign of the Infinity Saga, you wouldn't have received much backlash in the comments. However, while the MCU's first 3 phases were monumental, they aren't the only ones who have the right to make Marvel films. The success of the Infinity Saga was so overwhelming that it overshadowed many lackluster adaptations beneath the surface. In today's video, let's join Movie Honey as we look at a few Marvel movie projects that unexpectedly bombed. Why did audiences turn their backs on them? What are the behind-the-scenes stories? Without further ado, let's start the video. There have been many great X-Men stories in the 60-plus years since mutants were created, and the Dark Phoenix saga from Uncanny X-Men number 129 to number 138 is still considered an iconic epic. Understanding its significance, 20th Century Fox always aimed to make Phoenix the central star of the franchise. After The Last Stand failed, the studio didn't give up and decided to reboot with a new era, featuring younger mutants and still focusing on the major battle called Dark Phoenix. Tragically, while First Class and Days of Future Past left a significant mark as masterpieces, the third installment, which was supposed to be Fox's grandest vision, suddenly turned into a disaster. The film was not cheap, costing around $200 million, but it only brought in $250 million globally. The biggest issue Dark Phoenix faced was its noticeable deviation from the comic book principles. Key elements of mutation and significant events were systematically removed. While creative adjustments are acceptable for the big screen, this was not the Dark Phoenix fans were waiting for. In fact, it's fair to say the public could foresee the film's failure. Accordingly, the ending of X-Men, Days of Future Past seemed to establish a change in the current timeline, where characters like Jean Grey and Professor X were still alive. Therefore, it felt odd when the film continued to delve into another version of Jean Grey in the 1980s, a character whose storyline was full of contradictions with the original trilogy. Moreover, she was quickly brought in to defeat the powerful Apocalypse, sacrificing a grand chapter just to set the stage for Dark Phoenix. The script was difficult to handle, yet the marketing for Dark Phoenix was also far from insightful. In 2019, the world was under the influence of the Endgame effect, a film that Marvel promoted as the pinnacle of 11 years of cinema, the conclusion of an era filled with high notes. Inexplicably, 20th Century Fox forgot that Dark Phoenix also played the role of the last dance for the First Class era. Instead of capitalizing on this grand event to close out the memorable legacy of 19 years of mutant cinema, 20th Century Fox simply dropped the X-Men from the title, leaving just Dark Phoenix. This move likely led to the general audience not recognizing the significance of this battle. As the classic mutant team showed signs of decline, 20th Century Fox made a spectacular comeback by introducing X-Men First Class at a time when the original generation was faltering. The studio invested heavily in developing the New Mutants, hoping to continue the long-standing success of the franchise. However, while First Class served as a stepping stone to create the superhero cinematic masterpiece Days of Future Past, the New Mutants plunged into a development process akin to a hellish ordeal. This time, the reasons were not solely due to Fox. The COVID-19 pandemic took away too much from the industry, and this project was a clear victim. Initially, The New Mutants was scheduled to release in 2018, but a series of production delays pushed the release date to 2020. This period also saw Disney complete its acquisition of Fox, meaning all plans related to the X-Men were scrapped. The MCU would rewrite the X-Men, and The New Mutants, seen as a sunk cost, was released in theaters to recoup some expenses. Following the merger, The New Mutants was released with a lackluster attitude, receiving minimal promotion and no real effort to attract viewers. The film grossed only $49 million against a substantial budget. It was a total commercial failure, and from a critical standpoint, it left little impression on audiences apart from Anya Taylor-Joy's mesmerizing swordplay scenes. Howard the Duck was introduced by writer Steve Gerber in Adventure into Fear number 19 in 1973. Writers described Howard as a grumpy, rude duck from another planet, now stranded on Earth. With adventures that offered a satirical view of society, Howard quickly got the green light for a big screen adaptation in 1986. The film, simply titled Howard the Duck, was directed by Willard Huyck and produced by George Lucas. Despite having a skilled team, the project lost the comic book elements that made the duck distinctive. Somehow, Howard the Duck veered into a bizarre sexually implied romantic story with Beverly Switzler. Without action or humor, the film's comedic attempts fell flat, failing to engage the audience. After all, this was a live-action film about a talking duck, so its primary viewers were expected to be children. One can only wonder how parents felt about taking their kids to see such a bizarre project in theaters. The haunting presence of Howard lingered in the public's mind until the MCU reintroduced the character in the Guardians of the Galaxy films. Times have changed and perspectives have softened, but one thing remains certain: Howard the Duck is remembered as one of the most forgettable superhero adaptations of all time. Ben Affleck's Daredevil might not have been a heavyweight adaptation of the Hell's Kitchen Devil, but at least the film made money, which was enough motivation to greenlight Elektra 2 years later. While Jennifer Garner did a decent job transitioning from Daredevil to her solo film, her performance was hindered by a poor script. The film faced a barrage of harsh criticism from both critics and audiences who couldn't stomach the terrible dialogue, a storyline that didn't belong to Elektra, and cheesy character development. With a box office gross of $57 million against a $43 million budget, it was too small to make up for its costs. Few fans were impressed with the film, including the lead actress. According to Jennifer Garner's ex-boyfriend, Michael Vartan, she only managed to endure the ordeal because she was thinking of the Daredevil franchise and was contractually obligated to continue despite her misgivings. Indeed, apart from their passionate relationship, neither Ben Affleck nor Jennifer Garner gained much from participating in the Daredevil franchise. According to many rumors on social media, Jennifer Garner's Elektra might become a member of the Avengers under the Void, opposing Cassandra Nova in Deadpool and Wolverine. Better late than never. We hope that Jennifer's assassin character will receive a concise yet fulfilling conclusion. As of 2024, Marvel Studios has yet to release any Fantastic Four films, despite there having been for previous attempts. The first film was hastily made just to retain the rights, while the two modern live-action versions were disappointing, with Rise of the Silver Surfer failing to make enough money to warrant a third installment. It wasn't until 2015 that Fox suddenly announced a reboot, even though fans were eagerly awaiting the Fantastic Four to join the MCU. The reboot hit theaters with low expectations, as the trailer already hinted at a dark, gritty tone that clashed with the beloved humorous family dynamic. Despite low expectations, it was still disheartening to see a lackluster film in theaters. Wasting both Marvel's first family and the iconic villain Victor Von Doom, the movie had a production budget of $120 million but flopped, grossing only $167.8 million at the box office. Fantastic Four was also marred by a scandal when director Josh Trank blamed Sony just hours before the film's release. The studio had cut $30 million from the film's budget right at the start of production, leading to animosity between the parties and resulting in the original film not even having a proper ending. The failure of the reboot forced Fox to announce the cancellation of the previously planned sequel. The studio issued a heartfelt apology and proposed numerous ideas to continue the franchise, not realizing that just a few months later, Disney would begin the high-profile merger. Given the influence of Daredevil and Punisher on television shows, it's hard for new generations of Marvel film audiences to understand how challenging it was to adapt these street-level characters to the big screen. In addition to Ben Affleck's forgettable Daredevil, filmmakers made 3 attempts to develop Punisher projects, but Frank Castle never achieved the success he deserved. The third and currently last attempt to bring this anti-hero to life was in 2008 with Punisher: Warzone. The film performed poorly at the box office, grossing only $10 million despite a budget of $35 million. In terms of numbers, Warzone was a clear failure, one of the most significant failures in Marvel's cinematic history. However, unlike the other films on this list, Warzone was highly polarizing. You either loved it or hated it. Many years later, with the rise of streaming platforms, it's not surprising that the film found a niche audience. The cold reception back then can be explained by the fact that Punisher: Warzone was released in December 2008, several weeks after The Dark Knight and Iron Man had reshaped public taste. If most people were looking for heroism in Iron Man, it's understandable why the violent, dark, RoboCop-esque foundation of Warzone didn't resonate. Fans looking for the horror vibes of Marvel Comics were thrilled to see how the MCU brought Man-Thing to life in Werewolf by Night. Originally, Man-Thing wasn't a property that filmmakers were particularly interested in, so it's not surprising that many fans believed Ted Sallis had never appeared on screen. Back in 2005, director Brad Leonard helmed an independent Man-Thing project with a very modest budget of under $5 million. The film followed a sheriff in Louisiana investigating a series of deaths in the local swamp. This investigation led to an encounter with a monstrous plant creature, the main character of the film. Man-Thing was initially slated for theatrical release in the US, but due to a lack of marketing investment, crude VFX, and an unengaging script, the project was quickly relegated to a TV network. The final revenue was $1 million, and audiences over the years showed little interest in Man-Thing, as evidenced by its persistent 14% score on Rotten Tomatoes. Following the success of X2, Fox capitalized on the franchise's popularity not only with a third main film, but also with standalone spin-offs about beloved characters. The creative team proposed a concept exploring the backstory that shaped the mutants of today. Unsurprisingly, Wolverine and Magneto were quickly chosen for development due to their popularity and the potential for morally complex storytelling. Wolverine's solo project quickly went into production. However, contrary to fans' expectations, this journey into the past failed to achieve significant acclaim. A box office revenue of $373 million is not small, but it couldn't match the stature of Wolverine at the time. The title of the film said it all. Director Gavin Hood and Fox's team tried to cram 3 movies into one: Wolverine's adventure, the character's origin story, and an X-Men related piece. Had the studio focused on just one aspect, Wolverine would have become a more respectable version, regardless of the choice of focus. Unfortunately, the attempt to do too much resulted in a drawn-out fairy tale that was emotionally meaningless for Wolverine. He had a tumultuous past and a deep relationship with his girlfriend Kayla Silverfox, but the only lasting value for his character development was the revelation of his codename's origin. The failure of Wolverine led to the immediate shelving of Magneto's origin story. In 2013, Fox made another attempt with the Wolverine, but once again, it fell short. These two significant sacrifices from Fox paved the way for Logan to stand out as one of the most emotionally superhero films ever. This concludes the summary of some past Marvel projects that underperformed. Did I miss any notable names? If so, please comment below so we all know. Thank you for watching this video. Goodbye and see you next time.